Yes, that's what I mean. Private Advisor Zhang could not help but chimed in. According to Lord Wei, fixing the road will destroy the fields. If we have to bury pipes and divert water through the fields will be destroyed before the water comes. Wouldn't the people still lose their food? Magistrate Liao took a sip of his tea and said, Private Advisor Zhang, Lord Wei is a newcomer who has just been appointed. We can understand that he wants to achieve good results. However, understanding is one thing, allowing it is another. You don't have to be anxious. If anything happens, you can explain it slowly. This will prevent the officials in the provincial capital from misunderstanding you. I'm worried about the people. Private Advisor Zhang put on a pained expression and said emotionally, after fixing the road, the people in Fuping County can still get relief food from the provincial capital even if they don't have any food. Burying pipes and diverting water is just a waste of money. What effect will it have? Helian Vivian sneered. Private Advisor Zhang hasn't seen whether it's effective or not. How can you come to a conclusion? Magistrate Liao waved his hand. Lord Wei, let's stop arguing. Let's go to the fields and have a look. We can let the people from the provincial capital be our witnesses. This Wei guy, if I don't slap him in the face, he won't be convinced. He knew Fuping County very well. No matter how the water in the river flowed, it would never flow to the fields on high ground. Let's listen to Lord Liao and have a look at the fields. The official from the provincial capital spoke. He was still very kind to the people. Let's follow along. We can explain to Lord Wei when the time comes. When the crowd heard this, they burst into laughter. They looked at Helian Vivian with obvious mockery. The farmers didn't know who to listen to. They only vaguely felt that they shouldn't have come to find Sir Wei. However, now that things had come to this, there was no room for them to regret. They braced themselves and followed the group of officials to the fields. Magistrate Liao said that it was a field, but intentionally or unintentionally, he led the people to the riverside. He wanted to show the officials in the provincial capital how low the terrain was. The officials said casually as they walked, Lord Wei, sometimes you need to use your brain. How can the water flow to the fields when the river is so low? Helian Vivian's thin lips curled into a mocking smile. Before she could say anything, the sound of water flowing could be heard not far away. It was accompanied by the cheers of a few farmers. It caused quite a commotion. Water. There's water. The officials paused and looked toward the source of the sound. They saw a handsome and indifferent figure standing in the vast sky. He was tall and his long robe was slightly fluttering. He looked like a god from ancient times. His slender hands were covered with pure black gloves. His thin lips were curled into a faint smile. Chapter 478. Magistrate Liao wished that he did not know Old Master Yan at all. However, everyone in Fuping County, including the villagers, knew that Magistrate Liao and Old Master Yan were in the same boat. Who else could it be? Of course it's Magistrate Liao. If it wasn't for Magistrate Liao, how could he be so fearless? Officials and businessmen protect each other. In the end, the people are the ones who suffer. The villagers were getting more and more agitated as they spoke, especially a few old farmers. They looked at Old Master Yan and Magistrate Liao as if they were looking at their enemies. With a face full of anger, they rushed forward in large strides and surrounded the two people in the center, interrogating them for a long time. The yamen runners who were in charge of rescuing Magistrate Liao were blocked by De Xiong and could not enter the field. For a moment the entire field was in chaos. Voices cursing Magistrate Liao and Old Master Yan could be heard everywhere. It was obvious who was the one who had truly aroused the anger of the people. This is totally unreasonable. The officials from the provincial capital also realized that Magistrate Liao had gone too far, and there was no way to clean up the mess. They could not help but feel conflicted with him. They thought that they could get some offerings in Fuping County. After all, the higher-ups of the Liao family were not to be underestimated. Who would have thought that this would happen? The people were looking at them as if they were watching a show. Every one of them was a person with a high status in the provincial capital. They had never been ridiculed like this before. This series of actions was simply insulting them. Helian Weiwei stood at the side and watched this farce. The corners of her mouth had long been curled into a smile. When she glanced sideways, she saw the man's thin lips curling up mischievously, with a meaningful black-bellied flavor. Handsome is handsome but too dangerous. How did you come up with this idea? Hellion Vivian lowered her voice and whispered to her private advisor. Bailey Jiaju glanced at her. If it were not for the occasion, he would have pulled her into his arms and rubbed her fluffy head. He was very fond of this little thing who came over to talk to him like this. And Baligaju breathed gently in her ear, deliberately teasing her. When you were begging for mercy on the bed, I always had to think of something to distract myself. Otherwise, how could I control myself from wanting you? Hellion Weiwei was choked by the man's words. Her ears were somewhat numb and she lightly coughed a few times. She was very glad that she knew what was good for her from the start, and took a fancy to a certain highness. Otherwise, she really would have died without leaving behind a corpse. Just look at these officials. Until now, they still didn't know who they had offended to end up like this. They were really stupid. Lord Wei, why are you still in a daze? Hurry up and pull these unruly people away. Magistrate Liao couldn't take it anymore and started yelling. His hair was messed up and he was in an extremely sorry state. He wanted to use his authority to suppress the people, but these people were simply crazy. The moment he opened his mouth, they would choke him back with words. They pointed at him and scolded him. He couldn't suppress them no matter how hard he tried. Hellion Vivian's voice was calm. Magistrate Liao, it's better for you to answer the questions asked by the people properly. I'm not of much use anyway. The more the officials from the provincial capital looked at them, the more they felt embarrassed. Now that they heard Hellion Vivian's words, they simply flicked their sleeves and walked back. When they were leaving, they did not forget to yell at the Yamen runners in a low voice, remember to bring your lord to the Yamen. This is too much. Yes, yes. The Yamen runners hurriedly responded. When Magistrate Liao saw the situation, he knew that he had to make a decision. He turned around and glared at Old Master Yen fiercely. Look at what you've done. Lord Liao, I don't know how things turned out like this. These unruly people are simply courting death. How dare they make such a scene? Old Master Yen was used to calling the shots in Fuping County. His first reaction was to get angry. He thought that when he left this field, he would definitely find all the people who scolded him today, and teach them a lesson. He did not listen to Magistrate Liao's words and did not see that the officials from the provincial capital had already left. Magistrate Liao had never thought that Old Master Yen was stupid before. Now, other than the word stupid, he really could not think of another word to describe him. A huge sense of regret welled up in his heart. Why did he have to deal with such a person? Now, he had dragged him down and made him lose face in front of the officials from the provincial capital. It would take him a lot of effort to repair it in the future. How could an official be scolded by the people? This was simply a joke. He did not know how he would be laughed at in the capital in the future. This incident would probably be a shadow for him for the rest of his life. He must find a way to get rid of this. When he thought of this, Magistrate Liao shouted loudly, "Guards, take Old Master Yen away." Lord Liao! Old Master Yen was stunned, as if he could not believe what he heard. He stared blankly at Magistrate Liao who gave the order. He only reacted when a Yamen runner came over and held his back. He shouted at Magistrate Liao, "Lord Liao, you can't do this. We are in the same boat, Lord Liao." Magistrate Liao was not in the mood to care about what he said now. Since he could not suppress him, he might as well pretend that he did not hear it. Take him away. Magistrate Liao's hair and clothes were messy. He did not look like a magistrate at all. He could not even muster up any strength. If it were not for his pair of eyes that were too vicious, the people would have forgotten his identity. Baligaju was standing beside him. His voice was neither fast nor slow. "Lord Liao, didn't you hear what Old Master Yen said? He said that you are in the same boat. If you are dragged away by the Yamen runners, Lord Liao, are you putting righteousness before family?" Magistrate Liao was already in a bad mood. Now that he heard such words, he was so angry that his eyes turned red. He patted his chest breathlessly, but he could not do anything in front of the crowd. He could only clench his teeth and say, "Let's go." The Yamen runners hurriedly protected him. They reached out and pushed away the villagers who kept swarming toward them. They fled out of the fields. It was completely different from when they were facing Magistrate Liao. When the people looked at Hellion Vivian, their eyes were full of admiration. The Lord has already said that the officials in the provincial capital are all well prepared. If it weren't for the chaos, not only would your complaint be able to get rid of that Wei guy, it might even send him to prison and never let him out for the rest of his life. Really? Young Master Liao's dejected expression changed. His eyes lit up all of a sudden. Private Advisor Zhang did not know that young Master Liao had sent people to kill Hellion Vivian. He only heard young Master Liao's side of the story. He wanted to kill Hellion Vivian so badly, but he did not ask for more details. He said with certainty, with the Lord around, we can also turn the innocent into a criminal. What Private Advisor Zhang said was not wrong. After all, the provincial officials did not want to return empty-handed. As for Hellion Vivian's behavior, they could not stand it. They were originally here to enjoy life, but who knew that they would be humiliated in front of so many people? Who would have thought that they would lose face in front of so many people? No one would be happy about it. Moreover, with their relationship with Magistrate Liao, they already had their own plans for what they should do next. However, at this moment, the lost governor of 3 provinces, Lord Chun, finally arrived at the boundary of Fuping County. His servant kept apologizing to him along the way. Lord Chun was very anxious, but he did not show it on his face. He was afraid that something bad would happen, so he went to the local garrison camp before he came and showed the letter in his hand to one of the Emperor Emeritus's trusted aides. When the trusted aide received the letter, his expression changed, but he also gave him a confirmation that Highness has indeed come to our province. This is also the Emperor Emeritus's intention. With just a few words, Lord Chun could tell that there was a change in the imperial court. That Highness's methods had always been dreadful. It was obvious why he came to Fuping County this time. He was attacking from the outside. His goal was not as simple as Fuping County. It was obvious that he wanted to eliminate the hidden forces of the entire province in one move. Lord Chun shuddered. He looked at the Fuping Yamen in front of him. When he thought of the officials who came to Fuping County for inspection, including his former subordinates, he could only feel a chill running down his spine. He hoped that they could recognize Liangzi from beside His Highness and not cross the line. Achoo! Chan Liang, who was following beside Hellion Vivian, sneezed loudly. He looked at his boss with grievance. Why? Why didn't you let me go to the field with you? I heard from De Xiong that you're very cool. He felt relieved just hearing about it, let alone seeing it on the spot. What exactly did he miss? Hellion Vivian sipped her tea calmly. Your face is too eye-catching. The eye-catching one is the royal family. Chun Liang muttered softly. He glanced at the tall figure who was giving orders to the shadow guards and subconsciously stood up straight. Hellion Vivian smiled. You don't have to be envious. When old Master Yan's interrogation starts at noon, you'll definitely be useful. Really? Chun Liang was excited. He looked at himself in the bronze mirror. Then I'll go dress up first. Hellion Vivian was speechless. The little 7th prince took a bite of a meat bun and chewed it a few times. Third sister-in-law, why are your subordinates so dull? Hellion Vivian sighed. Maybe it's because they're born in a good family. Can they be better than third brother? The little 7th prince stood up shakily and put one hand on Hellion Vivian. Third brother has always been a little. Private Advisor Zhang saw that he had reacted, so he spoke more enthusiastically. We're a family. You can ask me if there's anything you don't understand. You can only speak after asking me. That way, you'll make fewer mistakes. Private Advisor Zhang was still nagging when Beligaju opened his mouth slowly. His tone was neither cold nor warm. He spoke slowly as if he did not care about Private Advisor Zhang at all. Who are you? Private Advisor Zhang did not expect to receive such an answer. His fingers were trembling as he stared at Beligaju with his eyes wide open. Hellion Vivian could not help but laugh out loud. She could clearly see that Private Advisor Zhang's face was frozen. He was so angry but could not vent his anger. He was so stupid. However, Bailey Jiaju's expression remained indifferent as he stared straight at the Yamen hall in front of him. His pair of long and narrow eyes did not have the slightest ripple, as if the person who said those words just now was not him. Hellion Vivian coughed softly and put on a serious expression. She saw that old Master Yen was brought up by 2 yamen runners. He did not kneel down. Because he had the title of Jinsher, he stood there swaggering. His eyes met Hellion Vivian's and he held his round belly. Before Hellion Vivian could ask, he began to shout loudly, "Your Excellency, I've been wronged." Hellion Vivian laughed mockingly. "You? Wronged? Your Excellency, I know that you have misunderstood me." Old Master Yen said with a smile, "I don't blame you. After all, I've reached my current position. It's inevitable that there will be many rumors and slanders. I've never expected anyone to be grateful for what I do. I didn't expect that those despicable people would have the opportunity to slander me. But then again, Your Excellency is biased against me. I can slowly prove it to you. Isn't it a little unfair to bring this matter to the imperial court?" Hellion Weiwei's eyes were slightly cold as she looked at him without saying anything. Chen Liang and the little 7th prince stood side by side in the crowd. The former scolded fiercely, "I, as your young master, have lived for so many years, but I have never seen such a shameless person like that Yen guy. He was the one who kidnapped the girl, and now he is saying it out loud as if he is some great hero. We shouldn't waste our breath on such a person. We should just kill him with our status." Little 7th prince chewed on a meat bun. His handsome face was very gloomy. Those who hurt the people will definitely get what they deserve. Third brother has plenty of ways to shut him up. We can kill him without using our status. Yes. Chunliang nodded and reached out to massage the little one's shoulders. He said very sensibly, "Young Uncle Master is wise." Little 7th prince turned his head and said fiercely, "You're not bad." It was rare to be praised by young Uncle Master. Chen Liang was so touched that he was about to cry. Hellion Vivian smiled and ordered the yamen runners at the side. "Help Private Advisor Zhang out. Let him think about what he did wrong." The manservants were stunned. This was the first time that Private Advisor Zhang was chased out of the imperial court in such a sorry state. After all, he had never lost in all these years. When he was investigating a case, he could protect whoever he wanted. With this, he received a lot of money. His silver tongue could even turn black into white. Now, before the court started, he was dragged out. And he was beaten up so badly. The manservants felt that something was wrong no matter how they thought about it. At this moment, Magistrate Liao had already realized what was going on. His eyes looked like they could spit fire at any time. This was their purpose. From the beginning, they wanted to drag Private Advisor Zhang out and force him to defend Yen Dezhao in person. He had underestimated this private advisor who followed Magistrate Wei around. He was good at using tricks. However, just based on this point alone, what could they do to them? How naive. Magistrate Liao smiled coldly and said, "Although Private Advisor Zhang broke the rules, Lord Wei, regarding the last question that Private Advisor Zhang asked, shouldn't you answer it directly? Who can be sure that the fellow with the surname Liu is not lying? As far as I know, that person has been looking at Yen Dezhao with hostility. No matter how little one tael of silver is, it's still silver. Since old Liu has accepted the money, it's reasonable that Yen Dezhao wants to marry his daughter. Moreover, Lord Wei hasn't understood the situation clearly. It's not right to convict Yen Dezhao like this." Hellion Weiwei glanced at Magistrate Liao as she twirled the ring on her little finger. Lord Liao really treats Yen Dezhao as his own family member to say such words. I just want to remind Lord Wei, so that he won't misjudge the case and fall into trouble. Since they were facing each other directly, Magistrate Liao did not care about anything else. He turned around and said to the officials from the provincial capital, "I heard that other than the Liu family, 2 other families also said that Yen Dezhao's style was problematic. Later on, they felt guilty for spreading rumors about Yen Dezhao behind his back. So, they came to the yamen and wanted to testify for Yen Dezhao personally." Hearing this, Wei Wei's shapely eyebrows creased. Magistrate Liao smiled when he saw her expression. He looked very confident. Haha, it's too late to be anxious now. He would like to see how this person with the surname Wei would handle being pushed by everyone later. The officials from the provincial capital were cooperative. Since there are other witnesses, summon them for questioning. Yes. The Yamen runner bowed his head respectfully and soon brought the two families in. Magistrate Liao was very amiable. You don't have to be afraid. Just say what you want to say. Chapter 482. That's not what they said before. Chen Liang clenched his fists in the crowd. He really didn't understand. They were the ones who found the boss and asked for redress. Now they were the ones who put the boss in a stalemate. Didn't they know that the whole case would be overturned and the boss would be stepped on by that Liao guy? Little Seventh Prince's handsome face became unprecedentedly serious. He narrowed his eyes as if he was going to start a fight if there was any change in the situation. The sudden reversal of the confession caused the entire interrogation scene to fall into a discussion. 2 out of the 3 families said that they had wronged Old Master Yan. If that's the case, the possibility of Old Man Lu lying is very high. Who knows? If you ask me, this kind of thing takes 2 hands to clap. Look at that girl surnamed Lu, she's so seductive at such a young age. Who knows, she might have taken the initiative to approach him. When Old Master Yan took their grain, Old Man Lu didn't have such a big reaction. Now that the harvest is not good, he's making such a fuss. He's really scheming. Sarcasm swept toward the father and daughter of the Lu family like a tidal wave. Lu Yin's eyes turned red. Her whole body trembled and she felt a chill from the bottom of her heart. Could it be that in people's eyes it would always be like this? She still couldn't forget how she had risked her life to escape the first time she was dragged to the Yan Manor. Even now, she still had nightmares at night about that scene. If Lord Wei and Private Advisor Long hadn't appeared, her life would have been ruined. She was the victim. Why didn't they punish that heinous man when something like this happened? Why did they have to find fault with the woman? Was this the so-called fairness and loyalty? She would rather not. For the first time, Lu Rin felt powerless. Just when she was about to give up, a lazy and clear voice came to her ears. Fellow villagers, you speak so harshly. Aren't you afraid that one day when your daughter is bullied, she will also be pointed at and scolded by others? Hellion Vivian's words were like a silencer in the crowd. In just a moment, all the gossiping people stopped talking. They looked at each other and quickly moved away. Then, he quickly moved away with an awkward expression on his face. There were also some people who refused to change their nature. If I had a daughter like her, I would strangle her to death the moment she was born, so that she wouldn't embarrass me in the future. Then this official truly feels sorry for your daughter. Hellion Vivian looked at the man and said, even a beast knows that even a vicious tiger won't eat its own cubs. You, on the other hand, are good. Your daughter is being bullied. It's fine if you don't help her vent her anger, but you still want to sprinkle salt on her wound. Well done. Hearing Hellion Vivian's words, all the citizens looked at that person. The old man's face turned red as he braced himself and said, That's because she did something that offended the clan. This official knows very well what kind of woman Lu Yin is. The case hasn't been settled yet, but this fellow from the same village is already spouting nonsense. Hellion Vivian sneered. What's your motive? Magistrate Liao was worried that the people who bribed the people would be found out, so he stopped Hellion Vivian in time. Lord Wei, you're thinking too much. This fellow from the same village is just expressing his opinion, and you're taking it so seriously. However, you don't know that some people look honest on the surface, but they're actually doing some shady things behind the scenes. As he spoke, Magistrate Liao looked at Yendezhao. Yendezhao, let me ask you. They couldn't come here for nothing, so they had to do something to show the governor. However, Governor Chun, who was standing in the crowd, was extremely anxious. But now, did he really have to watch that group of bullshit officials frame his boss to the point where he couldn't explain himself? Alright, Lord Wei, you don't have to think of ways to defend this person surnamed Lu anymore. If they really think that this official's betrothal gift is too little, this official will give them more. As he spoke, Yendezhao held his stomach and looked down at Lu Yin arrogantly. His tone was filled with disdain. Tell me, how much do you want? The deep sense of humiliation made Lu Yin bite her lips until they bled. Yendezhao's face was filled with more and more smiles. When he looked at that group of people, his eyes were filled with ridicule. A group of poor people still wanted to fight with him. He just had to give them some money to make them overturn their testimonies. not to mention sleeping with 2 or 3 of their daughters. Is 50 taels enough? Yan Dazhao sneered. He raised his hand and counted out 2 banknotes and threw them at Lu Yin's face. Hellion Vivian suddenly narrowed her eyes. Her voice was extremely cold. Yan Dazhao, I am warning you. If you don't stop now, I will make sure that your entire family will be buried with you. Lord Wei, are you feeling sorry for me? Yan Dazhao laughed. Oh right, this official thought about it. Lord Wei's background is also not good. I am sure that you have never seen so much money before, right? Do you want this official to show you a few more banknotes? No need. Bailey Jiaju, who had not spoken a word since the beginning, opened his mouth slowly. He glanced at the people who were kneeling on the ground unhurriedly. Then, he met Yan Dazhao's eyes and said, Lord Wei won't be interested in that little bit of money of yours. Yan Dazhao did not understand why he would feel so much pressure from an advisor. The feeling of being grabbed by the throat made his scalp numb. However, he had no choice but to continue with what he had said before. He said to Hellion Vivian without giving up, after saying so much, how can Lord Wei prove that you are not doing so much for Lu Yin because of personal feelings? Is it really good for a county magistrate to handle a case like this? What Yan Dazhao said is right. Magistrate Liao saw the time and said in a deep voice, Lord Wei, please put this case aside for the time being. It is the principle of avoiding relatives. We will see if you can still stay in Fuping County after the officials have finished their investigation. Hellion Vivian glanced sideways at Magistrate Liao. Her eyes were sharp. Lord Liao, the accused is Liao Dazhao, not me. Moreover, there is nothing between Lu Yin and me. We have only known each other for 2 days. How could there be any personal feelings between us? Without any evidence, you want to suspend my work? Have you thought about the consequences? Consequences? Magistrate Liao sneered. Lord Wei, you should be thinking about the consequences. Suspending your work is what the people want. Moreover, didn't someone say that their previous accusation was wrongly accusing Yan Dazhao? However, the 2 shadows in black standing on his left and right were like a wall. No matter how hard he tried, he could not break through. The steward was also afraid that Yan Dazhao would settle the score with him after the trial. He became a little timid when he said this. However, how could His Highness allow him to retreat? His fingers pressed down. His whole body was filled with hostility. What way? Chapter 485. The steward felt that even breathing had become a luxury. He said with difficulty, spend money to seal the mouth. Hearing this, there was an uproar inside and outside the yamen. On the contrary, Hellion Wei was very calm. Official Liao and Yan Dazhao's expressions changed. It was extremely ugly. Baligaju let go of the steward and put him down. His voice was as cold as ice. Tell me the details. Although Master was in prison, he was aware of what was happening outside the prison. The one who acted as the middleman was Private Advisor Zhang. After the near-death experience, the steward didn't dare to hide anything anymore. He panted and told the whole story. When Private Advisor Zhang found out that there were 2 other families who wanted to accuse Old Master, he went to the dungeon to find Old Master to discuss countermeasures. In the end, the 2 of them decided that Steward Zhang and I would take 50 taels of silver to those 2 families and tell them that if they changed the testimonies of those who accused Old Master, they would be given another 50 taels of silver. Upon hearing this, Xiao Chui, who had been tormented by her conscience, suddenly reached out and pushed away the relative who was secretly threatening her. She kowtowed to Hellion Wei and said, I am sorry, Lord Wei. Hellion Wei stood where she was without moving. She knew that it was time for the tables to turn. Xiao Chui looked up. Her eyes were red with tears. I shouldn't have accepted those taels of silver. But Official Wei, I really couldn't do anything. At my age, I should have been married a long time ago. Because of that nightmare, Yan Dazhao. He didn't care about my wishes and took me by force. He threw me a banknote and warned me not to report it to the authorities. Otherwise, my ending would be 10 times worse than now. I was young and didn't know the ways of the world. I couldn't stand that kind of humiliation. I directly reported it to the yamen, but he was released in less than a day. The county magistrate at that time even convicted me of adultery. and made me soak in the river for an entire night. For more than 100 days, I would dream of this bastard every night. I really wanted to drink his blood and eat his flesh. I wanted to see him get sentenced. But the heavens didn't open their eyes. The one surnamed Yen has someone protecting me. I'm just a commoner. Fighting with him is simply courting death. Just like what he said, I sued him. Not only did I not see him get the punishment he deserved, but I also became an unchaste and unclean woman. For so many days, all of my relatives pointed at my parents and laughed at me. Before the trial started, someone sent money over. If I accepted it, I could save some money for my parents. If I didn't accept it, I would end up in a miserable state. My second uncle told me so I listened. As Xiao Chui's cries grew louder, all the citizens understood what was going on. They turned their heads and looked at Yan Dazhao. This Yen guy is simply not human. Yan Dazhao turned around and glared at him fiercely. Who are you calling inhumane? That person ignored him and looked at Hellion Vivian saying, Lord Wei, you must punish him. No matter who is above him, if this kind of person is not punished, we citizens will not be able to live in peace. I think it's a little difficult. Who asked that Yen guy to have Magistrate Liao's protection? Maybe it's not just Magistrate Liao. Even the lords from the provincial capital seem to take special care of him. Chen Liang thought that he was very competent as a support. Someone asked, didn't the capital send a governor of 3 provinces? He should be able to do something about it, right? Chen Liang stretched his neck and straightened his chest proudly. He was just about to praise his father. He heard the crowd's reply. What do you mean? All the officials are the same. If that was the case, he would go all out and die together. Lord, you can't do this. The matter of giving money to those 2 families was clearly. She twirled her fingers and a cold smile appeared on her face. If that's the case, Lord Liao, shouldn't you explain what Yan Dazhao said at the end? According to what he said to the fellow villager who gave false testimony, it was Lord Liao's idea to give the witness the silver? As soon as she said this, the commoners who were listening to the trial all looked at Magistrate Liao. The situation of the officials from the provincial capital had also become somewhat unsightly. Magistrate Liao narrowed his eyes dangerously and said with a gloomy voice, Lord Wei, you can't simply say things like slandering others. The 2 stewards who are kneeling on the ground are from the Yen manor, and not from the Liao manor. It's not good to put all the blame on me. Lord Liao, are you not admitting to it? Hellion Vivian smiled. It's okay, he's not dead yet. Private Advisor Long, please bring the villager here again. Bailey Jiaju devilishly curved his thin lips. Just as he took a step forward, 2 bodyguards blocked in front of him. Hellion Vivian's eyes suddenly turned cold. The governor of 3 provinces, Lord Chan, felt that he had to leave. Otherwise, no one would be able to clean up the mess. Unexpectedly at this moment, an ear-piercing voice came from the outside, reporting to my lord. I want to sue County Magistrate Wei of Fuping County. The person who came was about 17 or 18 years old. Not only was he dressed in a brocade robe, but he also wore a big shiny golden ring on his finger. Who else could it be other than Master Liao from his arrogant and ostentatious appearance? He exchanged glances with Magistrate Liao as soon as he came in. Magistrate Liao nodded at him discreetly. The corners of his mouth were slightly curled into a sinister smile. It was obvious that he was targeting Hellion Vivian. Hellion Vivian raised her eyes and exchanged glances with Beligaju. She could not tell whether the man was happy or angry from his deep black eyes. The few officials from the provincial capital reacted strongly when they saw Master Liao. They subconsciously looked at Magistrate Liao. In fact, the reason why Magistrate Liao was able to do so well was mainly because of his son. Master Liao was the only nephew of the elder in the capital city. It could be said that the elder doted on him very much. It was said that the elder had the intention to pass on his position to his nephew. It could be said that all the power over there would most likely fall into Master Liao's hands one day. That was why the officials in the provincial capital behaved in such a manner. One of the officials who relied on the Hellion family stood up directly and said with a smile, "Second young master, why are you here?" Hellion Vivian raised her eyebrows when she heard the way he addressed her. The corners of her mouth curled into a playful smile. When Yuan Ming heard these words, it was rare for him to appear. His tone carried an evil smile. Woman, I think you might as well reveal your identity as a man. Chapter 487. Su Master Wei? Su Master Wei for what? The onlookers looked at each other and were confused about the situation. However, they were worried. It was obvious that Master Liao was more powerful than Yan Dazhao. Nothing bad will happen to Lord Wei, right? Luyin looked at Hellion Vivian anxiously. Hellion Vivian had a mocking look on her face. You want to sue me? That's right. Young Master Liao narrowed his eyes. Not only did you not apologize to me when you bumped into me, but you also casually injured my guards and detained all of them. You don't deserve to be an official with this kind of abuse of power. Chun Liang's face darkened when he heard this. He knew very well what was going on at that time. At that time, this little bastard surnamed Liao admitted his mistake without any hesitation. Now that I'm not here, he dares to bully my boss? Compared to Chun Liang's anger, Hellion Vivian laughed. Oh? Then what do you think I should do to continue being an official and compensate you for your clothes? Can you afford to compensate for my clothes? Master Liao is much more arrogant than Magistrate Liao. Look at how shabby you are. I know what kind of background you have. Open your eyes and look at the clothes I'm wearing. Even if you have a lifetime of salary, you might not be able to afford one of them. Governor Chan almost flipped the table when he heard this. This Master Liao was so fearless because he had someone backing him up. He could kill him with just one of the things in Her Highness' bedroom. He was still arguing about a piece of clothing. I don't know if I should admire his stupidity or laugh at his naivety. The father and son had the same thought. However, Chun Liang's reaction was more obvious. He gritted his teeth. This Liao guy is really asking for a beating. If we don't beat him up, he'll play tricks here. The little seventh prince snorted. He dares to compare who's richer with third brother and third sister-in-law? Is this person's brain not fully developed? Master Liao was completely unaware of the evaluation of him by the people outside. He was very rich and overbearing. Furthermore, how are we going to settle the matter of you beating up my guards? You want to get rid of me with a little bit of silver? Dream on. Then what do you want? Bailey Jiaju unhurriedly tidied up his sleeves and slowly raised his eyes. Little Baldy lowered his tone. Just watch, third brother is going to use his big move. Chun Liang blinked. What big move? How would I know? I'm not third brother. Little seventh prince held the meat bun in his mouth and glanced at Chun Liang. Step back. Third sister-in-law said that I can't let you out. Chun Liang. Why did the word release sound so weird when the little seventh prince said it? Meanwhile, in the yamen, young Master Liao, who was about to die, did not realize that he was going to be unlucky. He raised his nose to the sky and said arrogantly, apologize in public and compensate me with 1 or 200 taels of silver. 1 or 200 taels of silver. Hellion Wei sized him up and said sarcastically, like father, like son. Master Liao really has the guts to open his mouth. Yuan Ming was not idle either. He yawned lazily and said, woman, he's obviously trying to cheat you of your money. Hellion Vivian communicated with Yuan Ming using her consciousness. Her tone was neither fast nor slow. That depends on whether he has the life to take it. Yuan Ming stopped talking after hearing that. He only smiled evilly and floated behind Hellion Vivian, waiting to watch a good show. Young Master Liao naturally could not hear their conversation. He was still arrogant. I dared to speak because I have the capital. I didn't want to come here at first, but Lord Wei, you've gone too far. Not only did you abuse your power to capture my men, but you're also questioning my father. Among them, only Master Liao felt a little uneasy. When his father addressed him as Lord Chan, he suddenly remembered why he had come to Fuping County in the first place. Chapter 488. He could not find a chance to lay his hands on Wei Liao because Barbarian Bull from the Chun family was protecting him in all aspects when they were in the provincial capital. Now even Governor Chun himself was here. Therefore, it was not certain whether this was a good thing or a bad thing. father. Young Master Liao wanted to remind Magistrate Liao. However, Magistrate Liao was a little carried away when he saw Governor Chen's appearance. Money was the most powerful thing in the world. He only went to the provincial capital to talk to Governor Chen about the road construction in Fuping County. He did not expect him to come personally so soon. With Governor Chen's presence, he did not believe that he could not get Wei Liao down. Lord Chen, you saw it too. Fuping County is in trouble. I don't know how the new county magistrate was trained. He even dares to beat people up. Speaking of this, Governor Chen pretended to sigh. We don't have a choice. That's why we thought of asking him to let go of the power in his hands first. Bullshit. Since his father was here, Chen Liang decided to jump in as well. You've been slandering my boss since the beginning. Young Master Liao saw that Chen Liang was here too. He was so shocked that his face turned pale. He reached out to grab Magistrate Liao's sleeve. However, Magistrate Liao did not see his son's action. He sneered, "Young man, don't speak without thinking." Apart from Magistrate Liao, all the officials present had seen Chen Liang before and knew his identity. When they heard Magistrate Liao's words, they wished that they could shut him up. Governor Chen looked at him and said slowly, "Lord Liao, the young man you're talking about is my son. I can't guarantee anything else, but this child rarely speaks without thinking." Lord Liao's accusation seems to be a little harsh. Magistrate Liao froze. He did not expect that the bodyguard who followed Hellion Vivian around was the young master of the Chen family. The expression on his face was very interesting. So it's young Master Chen. Magistrate Liao stammered. His smile was uglier than when he was crying. It's my fault for being clumsy. It's my fault. Chen Liang snorted coldly. You're not clumsy at all. Ever since my first lady came to Fuping County, she has done a lot of good deeds. During the drought in Fuping County, she tried her best to eliminate the interference of corrupt officials like you. She buried pipes and channeled water so that the villagers could eat. Not only did you spread rumors about her, you even incited the people to criticize her. Yan Dazhao is such a scum. If it wasn't for boss, would you have helped Miss Lu and the others? You only know how to take money. You will help whoever gives you more money. Chen, young Master Chen, you can't say that. You don't understand the situation, so you probably don't know. The other provincial officials also stood up, wanting to clear their names. Chen Liang interrupted them coldly. Why don't I know anything? I arrived in Fuping County a day ago. I was the one who received boss when he went to the provincial capital. I saw everything that happened in Fuping County within a day. If it wasn't for boss forbidding me to come out, I would have already beaten all of you up, a bunch of corrupt officials. A day ago? Didn't that mean he arrived in Fuping County earlier than them? The few officials from the provincial capital froze. Then, they slowly looked in the direction of Hellion Vivian. Since he already had the support of the governor's son, why didn't he ask young Master Chen to come out sooner? If he had come earlier, they would not have made such a mistake. Wait a minute. This Wei guy seemed to be doing this on purpose. Gradually, the officials realized that they seemed to have fallen into a trap that had been set up long ago. The other party had been waiting for this moment, waiting for all of them to fall into the trap. Chapter 489. The Ministry of Official Personnel Affairs of the Imperial Court has a rule every year that the salary of the officials is determined according to their official position. Beligaju said with a faint smile, but no one could feel the warmth in his voice. Magistrate Liao, you are just a small magistrate. How can you let your son wear a brocade coat that costs more than 100 taels? Magistrate Liao's fingers paused and he wanted to put on airs. Private Advisor Long, I am talking to Chen Xiaoya, not you. What do you think this is? Answer my question. Bailey Jiaju's voice was cold and hard as he interrupted his words. His pair of eyes emitted a chill that could almost freeze a person's skin. At that moment, Magistrate Liao felt a fear that he had never felt before. Governor Chen observed Beligaju's expression. He finally had an accurate guess. His Highness did not want to reveal his identity, so he had to control his emotions. It was important to guess the thoughts of the superior. Governor Chen tried his best to act natural in front of Beligaju. At least, he did not want to reveal anything. Liao, do you know who you are talking to? Chun Liang could not hold back anymore. He wanted to lift Magistrate Liao up. Governor Chun pulled him back and said calmly, Lord Liao, in the imperial court, when the advisor asks questions, it's best that you answer in full detail. Magistrate Liao had to give an explanation since the governor of 3 provinces asked him personally. He tried his best to put on a smile on his face. Magistrate Chun, you know that I am not talented. I like to do business to support my family. Moreover, this child's uncle has always doted on him, so he sends all the good things to him. He pushed all the things related to him away with just one sentence. Bailey Jiaju curled his thin lips and said, Magistrate Liao said that it was a gift, but according to my investigation, Magistrate Liao sent the disaster relief funds to his private account on the first day after he received them from Fuping County. The clothes that Master Liao is wearing right now were also bought with those silvers. How can this be considered a gift? What disaster relief funds? I don't know what you are talking about. When Magistrate Liao said this, it was obvious that he was guilty. His eyes darted left and right, but his heart was filled with shock. He thought that he had done it secretly, but how did the other party find out? Baligaju smiled. You don't know? It seems that Magistrate Liao wants me to help you remember? Although there was a smile on his lips, his expression was so cold that it made Magistrate Liao feel uneasy. Governor Chun turned his head to look at him. His eyes were filled with anger. Disaster relief funds? You touched the disaster relief funds. If Governor Chun felt that this Liao guy was just acting recklessly earlier, he now felt that this man deserved to die. Is there still any law in your eyes? Governor Chun was born as a general. In order not to cause trouble for the retired emperor, he had already trained his temper to be very good. Now, when he heard that Magistrate Liao was even greedy for the disaster relief funds, he was immediately enraged. He lifted his foot and kicked Magistrate Liao. Magistrate Liao was caught off guard. The pain in his left leg made him kneel on the ground. Master Liao extended his arms and stood in front of Magistrate Liao. He said to Governor Chun, Lord Chun, let's talk things over, let's talk things over. Talk things over, my foot. Chun Liang said, when we were in the provincial capital, you were the one who bumped into our boss. You even apologized to him on the spot. Now that we are in Fuping County, you are accusing our boss. Both Liao family's father and son are the same. Both of you are pests who harm the people. Beating you up is considered a light punishment. You are full of lies and hypocrites. The crowd was furious when they heard what he said. You want a reward after bumping into someone? This is the first time I've seen such a shameless person. It's all because Lord Wei is clean and has no background. He is easy to bully. Look at those officials from the provincial capital. They are protecting Master Liao so well. They are obviously working together to frame Lord Wei and put him in prison. These people can actually become the parental officials? Is the heavens blind? Good people are killed because of them. We must give Lord Wei an explanation for this. That's right. We must give Lord Wei an explanation. Inspector Governor. Luyin spoke from the crowd. I heard that you were ordered by the retired emperor to seek justice for the people. Now, not only are there people who are taking bribes and bending the law, they even want to murder an honest official. There are so many of them. Do you know how to deal with them? Do you think you can give us an explanation? Not only did the Liao family's father and son turn pale, but the 4 officials from the provincial capital also turned pale when they heard what she said. They tried to explain themselves in a panic. Lord Chun. They thought that even though Lord Chun was the inspector governor of 3 provinces, he could not punish all of them at once. He had to weigh the various positions of the officials. If he went overboard, the higher-ups would definitely be dissatisfied. However, they did not expect him to arrest all of them with a single order. Inspector Governor Chun, aren't you afraid of falling out with us? One of the officials shouted in a low voice. How can you arrest us so brazenly? The elders won't agree to it. However, what the officials did not expect was that this time, Inspector Governor Chen did not even care about the elders. He only said 3 simple words, arrest them. At that moment, all the officials were more or less dumbfounded. Even the elder's name was no longer useful? Who exactly gave Inspector Governor Chun such great support? The officials could not figure it out. Young Master Liao, on the other hand, simply turned hostile. Chan, I'm flattering you so humbly because I'm giving you face. How dare you lock me up? Just you wait. They had never seen such an arrogant person. Almost all the people heard young Master Liao's threat at the end. Magistrate Liao was the calmest among them. The moment his hands were handcuffed, he still had his own plan in mind. As long as they didn't commit the crime of murder, the higher-ups wouldn't just watch them die like this. It would be the same even if the other party was the Inspector Governor of 3 provinces. No matter how powerful the Inspector Governor of 3 provinces was, could he be more powerful than the 4 great elders in the capital city? Wei was only relying on Chen's support. When they were sent to the capital, there would still be room for negotiation. When the time came, he would like to see who would be the real winner. The other 4 officials thought so too. That was why when they entered the prison, they began to remotely command their subordinates to carry out various activities. They asked them to send the money that should be sent, so that they could teach Hellion Vivian and the rest a lesson when they returned to the capital. Chapter 490. At this moment, the news of Hellion Vivian getting rid of evil for the people and benefiting Fuping had spread among the villagers. The people felt satisfied. They pulled up banners in the fields and hung them one after another. All of them showed the people's gratitude to Hellion Vivian. When Governor Chun saw the water pump by the river, he was very excited. He accidentally called out Hellion Vivian's real name, Princess Consort. If the retired emperor saw this scene, he would definitely thank you on behalf of the entire War Dragon Empire citizens. There were many mountainous regions that couldn't withstand the summer drought because of the water shortage. Every year at this time, just within the provincial capital, there would be many villagers queuing up to receive grain from the warehouse. In the future, with this thing made by Princess Consort, the people won't have to worry about water anymore. Bang! The watermelon that Lu Rin was carrying fell to the ground heavily. It broke into 5 or 6 pieces and interrupted the conversation between Governor Chan and Hellion Vivian. Hellion Vivian turned around and looked at her. She was still wearing a plain white robe, but the corners of her eyes were slightly raised. What's wrong? Lord Chun. He just called you Princess Consort. Lu Rin started to doubt if there was something wrong with her ears. Unexpectedly, Hellion Vivian blinked her eyes and admitted frankly, I forgot to tell you, I'm actually a woman. No, it's not a matter of gender. It's Princess Consort. Lu Rin was so excited that she immediately knelt on the ground. I didn't know that Princess Consort. Hellion Vivian put her finger in between her thin lips and pulled her up. I deliberately disguised myself this time because I don't want people to know. Lu Rin was still a little confused, but she was smart enough to keep quiet at this time. No wonder Governor Chen didn't feel like he was in a high position when he faced Lord Wei. Instead, he was extremely polite. It turned out that Lord Wei had such a strong background. According to this deduction, Lord Wei had a strong background. Then, wouldn't Private Advisor Long, who made Governor Chen follow him willingly, have a stronger background? Someone who had more power than the current Princess Consort. Wouldn't that be? Luin was shocked and did not continue thinking about it. On the other side, Beligaju reached out and saved the carrier pigeon from the little one. Looking at the note that he plucked from the pigeon, his eyes slowly turned cold. What's wrong? Hellion Vivian naturally saw his emotional fluctuations. Beligaju handed over the note in his hand and said indifferently, the snake has begun to enter the cave. We should also move. Hellion Vivian raised her eyebrows and looked at the contents of the note. The corners of her mouth faintly carried a mocking smile. These officials were really dishonest. Even after entering prison, they still had so many disobedient thoughts. Could it be that they didn't know that as an official, the more important it was at this time, the more they should cut off contact with the people above them? If that was the case, there might still be a chance of survival. However, they had chosen the most foolish way to ask for help from the higher-ups. This was no different from courting death. Hellion Vivian curved her thin lips. Have you made the arrangements in Fuping County? Yes, the biggest problem in Fuping County is the drought. Now that this problem has been solved, the real county magistrate will be here in 3 days. You don't have to worry, the new county magistrate is one of my people. He will do everything well. Baligaju's voice was as noble as usual. It always had the power to convince people. Hellion Vivian thought about it and also felt that it was time to move up. The corners of her mouth twitched slightly as she glanced at him. She silently complained in her heart. When other people were in a relationship, it was the girlfriend who did not finish the food for the boyfriend to eat. Why was it the other way around when it came to her? If she continued to eat like this, she would definitely be worried about her future weight. Hellion Vivian reached out and pinched her face. She felt a little sad. Baligaju naturally saw her actions and pinched her face. It's not enough. What's not enough? Hellion Vivian's eyes were slightly dazed. Baligaju looked at her with a faint smile. The feel of your hand. Don't you know that your husband likes to pinch meaty things? Hellion Vivian chuckled. So you want to raise me into a pig for your own preferences, right? She had to admit that a certain prince was too sinister. So don't let me see you eat less, okay? Threatening her? Hellion Vivian rolled her eyes. She was directly pulled into his arms. While she smelled the scent of sandalwood, he rested his face on her shoulder and his thin lips landed behind her ear. Instead of thinking about those useless things, it's better to take care of your body. Yes. Hellion Weiwei's lips curved into a smile. Was it an illusion? Why did she feel that a certain prince was very concerned about whether this body was good or bad? Hellion Vivian playfully took his hand and placed it in her palm. Then she interlocked their fingers and enjoyed the quiet intimacy. The carriage traveled on the mountain roads of Fuping County. The fields that were irrigated by the river had already sprouted emerald green seedlings, which looked very pleasing to the eye. The transformation of the land always made people feel relaxed and happy. The air was filled with the pleasant smell of water. Everything seemed very beautiful. At this moment the carriage suddenly came to a stop. Hellion Vivian and Baligaju looked at each other and stretched out their hands to lift the curtain of the carriage. In the fields in front of the carriage, there were countless people standing orderly. They were even afraid of blocking Hellion Vivian's footsteps, so they chose to stand quietly and silently send off their hero, Lord Wei, in their hearts. These people were all farmers. Perhaps they were often called stupid by others. There were also many scumbags among them who were greedy for money. However, most of them lived in the poorest areas, but there were still people who were kind. Sometimes what they wanted was very simple, which was to have enough to eat, wear, and be treated fairly. However, there were very few people who would stand up and do something for them. Now, Hellion Vivian was here in the form of Lord Wei. When she arrived, there was no trace of her. But when she left, so many people were reluctant to let her go. Hellion Vivian watched this scene quietly. Her eyes were filled with astonishment and gratitude. Little Seventh Prince was riding in front of the carriage. He turned his head and asked Hellion Vivian softly, "Third sister-in-law, do you want to get off the carriage?" "No." Hellion Vivian retracted her gaze. There was a deeper tone in her voice that was not there before. "Let's continue forward." "Okay." Little Seventh Prince led the way in a dignified manner. Hellion Vivian let out a long sigh. When she changed her identity in the future, she could still come to Fuping County and open an orchard or something. At that time, would they be able to accept the fact that Lord Wei was actually a woman? There were also some people who encountered the same problem as Hellion Weiwei and the rest. That was two businessmen from other places. Originally, they just wanted to see how the seafood in this coastal provincial capital was like, and whether they could transport it back to their hometown. They did not expect that their meal would be such a scam. Chapter 493. Hellion Vivian had observed that none of the people eating here were locals. Most of them were foreigners. While they were eating, 3 or 4 people came and wanted to smash the restaurant in front of the waiter. However, the merchants all believed in one principle, and that was if they went out, they would try their best not to cause any trouble if they could. Although they were angry, they had to finish the dishes they ordered. Otherwise, it would be a waste of money. It was not worth it. Selling seafood like this is daylight robbery. Someone cursed in a low voice, just like what they said. I shouldn't have come to the provincial capital. Hellion Vivian's eyes moved slightly and laughed. This big brother, do you know something? That person saw that they were also victims, so he cried and laughed. I don't know anything. Before I came, I saw a few merchants who wanted to come to the provincial capital to buy seafood. Those people reminded me that the water in the provincial capital is too deep, and there are many scammers. It's better not to come here. I thought that since this is the coastal area closest to the capital, how much scammers can they scam us? The palace is just over a mountain, so they can't go too far. But who would have thought that we were just standing at the door and looking at the fish tank and were forced to order so many dishes? Every dish here is so expensive. You saw it too. They charged us more than 40 taels for just a few small shrimps. We only brought 100 taels with us. This is just the beginning, because we spent more than half of our money on just one meal. It's a scam. Is there no one above to take care of this? Hellion Vivian asked. That person shook his head. How can this be taken care of? There must be someone behind this who dares to open a restaurant like this. Before I came I heard some news and thought that I wouldn't be scammed. I was careful in everything and asked for the price of every dish in advance. Who would have thought that the dishes were not what I saw? Alright, let's not talk about it anymore. We can't afford the seafood anymore. Let's go back. Another person stood up with a dispirited expression on his face. That person said to Hellion, Wei, brother, we'll take our leave first. Seeing that you're still young, I'll leave you with a word of advice. Don't stay in the provincial capital for too long, and don't get into any conflicts with them. I saw the people from the Yamen coming over last time, and they were very respectful to the boss here. Perhaps they were the ones who pulled all the strings here. If you can leave, try to leave as soon as possible. So that's how it is. Hellion Vivian played with the teacup in her hand. Big brother, if you trust me, you can leave 2 days later and find an inn in the provincial capital to stay. I promise that in less than 2 days, your seafood business will be doing well. When the man heard Hellion Vivian's reply, he was dumbfounded. Here are 40 taels of silver. Hellion Vivian reached out and took out a piece of paper from her long sleeve. This money is enough for you to stay in the provincial capital for 2 days. When the man saw the logo on the money, his eyes suddenly changed. You're profound. Hellion Wei nodded her head, still smiling. The man suddenly felt that the money in his hand was too heavy. As a businessman, the most important thing was to make more money. Almost all businessmen knew that instead of saying that Profound Heavens had successfully crushed many armament stores, it was better to say that it was a store that every businessman wanted to open. As long as there was a place with a lot of people, Profound Heavens would definitely appear. Moreover, the armament stores inside were highly sought after. To be able to reach this point, they simply couldn't imagine how powerful the people inside were, let alone seeing the internal staff inside. At most, he would just be changed his position. With the presence of the elder, those who wanted to stir up trouble in the provincial capital would be in vain. For example, the one with the surname Chan thought that he was nothing when he came to the capital city, even though he was the governor of 3 provinces. Now, the most important thing was to see if this new official could be roped in. The officials had their own plans. After arriving at the magistrate's mansion, they waited for less than half an incense stick's worth of time before they saw a carriage slowly approaching. There were no bailiffs, but 2 black-clothed guards with sabers on each side of the carriage, as if they were protecting it. Our new colleague is here. Someone was obviously tempted. This person was the general stationed in the provincial capital that Governor Chan had always been afraid of. This general was not just anyone. He was the backbone of Elder Hulian's army, Liao Qingtian. He and Magistrate Liao were brothers from the same mother. For so many years, the reason why Fuping County was so difficult to investigate was because of these 2 brothers. One of them was in the civil and the other was in the military, so it was difficult to find a breakthrough. No matter how high Governor Chen's position was, everything would be in vain if he did not have an army. Liao Qingtian was a man who had won many battles. He was afraid that if he were to make a move on him, it would cause suspicion among the generals from the other families, which would be disadvantageous to the retired emperor. Therefore, no matter how many problems there were in the provincial capital, as long as Liao Qingtian did not commit any serious crimes, he could not go overboard. Now, it was up to His Highness to deal with him. Governor Chun stood aside and quietly raised his head to look at the carriage. When the door of the carriage opened, the crowd could not help but take a step forward. The first thing that came into view was an ivory robe, followed by long slender legs and a tall and straight figure. When this person got down from the carriage and revealed his godlike handsome face, everyone could feel the ice-cold noble aura. They were all stunned. This is our new colleague. Why is he so handsome? To be honest, one would need to be quite old to be able to get to this position in the provincial capital. None of the people around them were good-looking. They all had big bellies, fat heads, and big ears. This new colleague was so handsome that it was a little unreal. Moreover, he was too young. Could it be that he had some kind of background? But he did not look like one based on the clothes he was wearing. Just when the officials were guessing, the man held the curtain with his left hand that was wearing a white glove. He said in a deep voice, "Lord Wei, we have arrived. You can get down from the carriage now." Lord Wei? Hearing this name, the first reaction of the officials was to look at the smiling Liao Qingtian. As expected, that person's face had already darkened. His eyes were emitting an unfriendly light. At this moment, Hellion Vivian had already walked out. Her slightly tanned face appeared in front of the crowd as soon as her feet touched the ground. She was very ugly. "Greetings, lords. It's the first time we meet. Please pay more attention to me in the future." Hellion Vivian curved her thin lips inconspicuously. The officials looked at her and gradually felt that the rumors had been exaggerated. How capable could a young man who was not even 18 years old be? It had been exaggerated to the point that he did not look like a real person. They reckoned that with Governor Chen's help and Magistrate Liao's carelessness, they were fooled. Such a person would not be able to achieve much in political affairs. When the time came, they would still be the ones in charge of the provincial capital. Chapter 496. Hellion Vivian sat up straight. "Since it's a lie, it's slandering our department. In my opinion, this Bayview seafood restaurant shouldn't continue to operate. Otherwise, the merchants from other places would really think that this restaurant is under General Liao's protection. Then it would be hard to explain." "Lord Wei, do you mean that Bayview seafood restaurant should be closed down?" Liao Qingtian could no longer put on a smile. He did not expect that Wei Liao had said so much just to pave the way for this sentence. However, Hellion Wei smirked and said, "General Liao has just said that the waiter of Bayview Seafood Restaurant is a braggart. Not only does he not follow the rules, but he also cheats people everywhere. Keeping this restaurant will only hinder the development of the provincial capital. I guess Lord Wei still doesn't know the reason why this Bayview Seafood Restaurant was opened." Liao Qingtian sneered. "The sea goods offered to the palace every year are all from Bayview Seafood Restaurant. The retired emperor likes it very much. If Bayview Seafood Restaurant is closed down and the retired emperor blames us, who will bear the responsibility?" Hellion Vivian put down the teacup in her hand. "If the retired emperor knows that this is a deceiving restaurant, he won't allow it to continue operating, right? Lord Wei, you must have evidence before doing anything," Liao Qingtian said gloomily. "It's too early for you to say that it's a deceiving restaurant." Hellion Vivian looked at Liao Qingtian and laughed. "Judging from General Liao's behavior, I can't help but suspect that this Bayview Seafood Restaurant has a close relationship with you." Upon hearing this, Liao Qingtian's expression darkened. He knew that he was once again tricked by Wei Liao. His eyes were dark and heavy. Suddenly, he laughed and raised the wine cup in his hand. "Lord Wei, you're so eloquent. No wonder my brother was defeated by you." "General Liao, you must be joking." Hellion Vivian was not afraid of his terrifying murderous aura. She stood up calmly and held the cup in her left hand. She said calmly, "Magistrate Liao was defeated by his greed. The imperial court spent money to nurture officials. It's not for them to be greedy. It's natural for him to be defeated." Liao Qingtian looked at Hellion Vivian. After a long time he laughed, "Good, very good." Since this Wei fellow did not know how to appreciate his kindness and refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, he would let this person have a taste of the consequences of going against him, Liao Qingtun. The two of them could be considered to have completely declared war. Nothing could be seen on the surface, but waves were surging in the dark. The atmosphere of the meal was very strange. The officials who had originally intended to befriend the newly appointed Hellion Vivian immediately gave up when they saw this scene. After offending General Liao in the provincial capital, there was no need to consider the consequences. Besides, the Bayview Seafood Restaurant was built under the orders of the elder in the capital. All the rules and regulations were set in advance. Now, Lord Wei actually suggested to close it down. What was the difference between this and seeking death? I didn't expect the Princess Consort to fall out with Liao Qingtian so soon. Governor Chan changed the way he addressed Hellion Vivian when there were only 3 people left. Hellion Vivian sat casually on the wooden chair in the yamen and said casually, "I'll be here for less than 2 days. I don't have time to waste with him. Since he dared to cheat me of my money, I'll make him spit it out the same way he cheated me." But this Bayview Seafood Restaurant, Governor Chun glanced at Beligaju's side profile as he spoke. "I'm afraid it's not that easy to close it down. This involves the power of the capital. If we make a big fuss and fail to achieve our goal, all our efforts will be in vain." Beligaju did not say a word. He was holding a scroll from the side of his face, but no emotions could be seen on his face. Governor Chun always knew that His Highness was unpredictable, but now he really wanted to know what was on his mind. This way he would have a better idea of what to do. Beligaju naturally knew what he was thinking about. Through the scroll he said faintly, "Governor Chun, what do you think we should do to punish a general who has military exploits but harms his neighbors?" This? Governor Chun looked down hesitantly. "I'm slow-witted. I can't think of a good idea." Beligaju tapped on the rice paper with his slender fingers and said with a faint smile, "Take advantage of the situation." Governor Chun, who did not know the cause and effect, did not understand. However, he was sure of one thing. Based on Liao Qingtian's hot temper, he would definitely be unhappy about today's incident and would definitely submit a memorial to the higher-ups. After all, this Bayview Seafood Restaurant was not an ordinary restaurant. He did not know how the higher-ups would react. Forgive him for being old. He was not smart enough to follow the third prince around. However, there was one thing that Governor Chen was right about. Liao Qingtian did write a memorial to be reported to the capital city elder's residence. Every time he put down the brush, his eyes were filled with malice. 4 or 5 officials from Liao's faction stood on his left and right, flattering him in 2s and 3s. "General Liao is the best. Once the memorial is passed to the elders, I'm afraid that Wei will have to slap his own face this time. He didn't even investigate the background of our Bayview Seafood Restaurant before showing off his strength here. He is so stupid. He's just a petty person who got what he wanted." General Liao blew away the ink stains on the brush. Since he has the support of the governor of 3 provinces, he's the boss. How dare he be so arrogant in front of me? I'd like to see how he's going to run away when the elder arrives. Someone nodded in agreement. He's just a small character who can't play the role of a beam. He's just a burden to us. However, General, shouldn't we remind the people at Bayview Seafood Restaurant to collude their statements so that there won't be any more problems? Yes, we should remind them that this Wei guy is a little smart. We have to be careful of him. It's best if we can think of a way to make him suffer and lose his official title. This way we can ask that Chen guy to release my nephew and the rest. General Liao played with the prayer beads in his hand, but he could not suppress the malice that was emanating from him. The other officials looked at each other and said, "This is the provincial capital. That Wei guy is from another city. Although he's staying in the yamen runners in the yamen are all our people. If he wants to know something, someone will report it to him immediately. He has no advantage in this aspect. However, I'm afraid that Lord Liao was careless in the past because of this. We've all heard about what that Wei guy did in Fuping County. He was able to arrest Lord Liao partly because he has the support of Governor Chan and partly because he has a good advisor by his side. As long as we can think of a way to make something happen to this advisor, It'll be enough to give that Wei guy a headache. Advisor. The image of that noble and tall figure who didn't take him seriously appeared in front of General Liao's eyes. He sneered, let's do it this way. It's fine that you're so arrogant, but even the advisor accompanying you is so blind. Serves you right. That strength was simply, it was enough to knock them down. It was not an exaggeration at all. The little seventh prince possessed this kind of divine strength. It was normal for him to beat people up. The imperial physician stood at the head of the bed and looked at each other in dismay. It's your turn to go over this time. No. I'm not qualified enough. It's better for Imperial Physician Zhang to go over. What kind of joke was this? Whoever went over now would become the next target of the little seventh prince. He had just walked a little closer, and was still feeling a little dizzy after being hit by the pillow. He really wanted to ask, how many pillows did the little seventh prince hide? Ever since they entered, the little seventh prince had treated them like scourges. He would hit anyone who came close to him. At this rate, they would not even know what the little seventh prince's condition was, let alone checking his pulse. They could not see anything through the screen. Eunuch's son was very anxious. He had already come to the bedroom and was wandering around outside. When he saw the imperial physicians coming out, he went up to them and asked, how is it? How is the little seventh prince? Speaking of which, the imperial physician was still a little shy. He touched the back of his head and said, the little seventh prince did not let us take a look. What do you mean by not letting you take a look? The person who said this was the retired emperor. After receiving the news that his precious grandson was seriously ill, he did not even sign the memorial and did not change into his court robes. He just rushed over in a hurry. The reason why Eunuch's son was standing outside was to wait for the retired emperor. The imperial physicians' faces turned pale, and they all wanted to kneel down. The retired emperor didn't have time to listen to their nonsense. He walked in with large strides and went around the screen in an instant. The little one was still lying on the bed, looking at the ceiling angrily and thinking about what to eat later. His expression was very serious. As soon as the retired emperor saw that little handsome face with a pout, his heart ached. This grandson of his had never been sick since he was a child. He lived like an iron wall. The number of times that he could lie down obediently like this could be counted on one hand. This kid used to live a good life in the wild mountains as a monkey. Why did he fall ill after a trip to the provincial capital? Little seventh prince, tell Grandpa Emperor, where do you hurt? The little one gave him 2 words without hesitation. Stomach. Stomach? The retired emperor reached out and touched the little one's soft and tender stomach. He raised his eyebrows in confusion. Could it be that he was starving after going out? This was not possible. Little seventh prince could even eat raw fish. He was born to not be hungry. What is going on? The retired emperor turned his head and asked the shadow beside him. The shadow did not know how to answer. Their eyes flickered. The little one did not forget his third brother's instructions before he left.